So we're continuing to talk about this book, so I'm going to put the camera on while we do it.
There we go. So, yeah.
So what I wanted to say mostly was just, it's in this point of view here, this person's book is, it doesn't lean in the right direction. He's kind of grasping all over the place. And that happens when you're not really on the right track. When you're on the right track, things just fall into place. It becomes really obvious where you're going. But he does provide a lot of information, so great. Anyway, I wanted to mention the one part where he was talking about the Patrick McGoohan giving an interview, and an audience member asked, Patrick McGoohan's opinion about where things are going, and he gives a very definite answer. He has his opinion, and he's saying exactly in the kind of way that people like to hear. Most people like to get a very confident answer. And what I have to say about that is the audience member, I agree that with Patrick McGoohan about his answer no and blah blah blah, but it's not the and blah blah blah, it's the no to the answer of the to answer the audience member, because they're asking Patrick McGoohan's advice. That's why it's still no. Because you don't, if you want to know where the state of the world is going or whatever, you don't ask an actor. I mean, for Pete's sake, what's he gonna know? Honestly. And that's the problem, is too many people that, honestly, the whole, the passive side of the spectrum, we're so accustomed to being told how to think and what to do and how to do it by the aggressive side, that we don't lift our heads up and go, wait a minute here, we're actually the better learners of the whole group of society. We are better able to learn because we are always trying to think 2 steps ahead so that we don't have to be corrected, right? So start thinking for yourself, and then things will get better. That's the problem, is that too many passive people are asking the advice of aggressive people who are using them. They are using them, they need to use them, they need to take their energy because they never have enough. They always want more, and they will always take more and more and more and more of the passive people's energy. So you don't ask an aggressive person, you don't ask an entertainer. The yellows are aggressive. You don't ask them their opinion on where things are going, unless you want to go the way that they want to go. Do you want things to be more aggressive? Well then, yeah, ask them. Do you want a world where it's more passive and more free and more peaceful? Well, who are you going to ask? Lift your head up. Start reading for yourself and make your own opinions, and then ask each other. Ask other passive people and come up with some sort of decision democratically between other passive people, and then you will have a more passive place to live. That's honestly, it's really very simple. Okay, and I wanted to mention another part that I marked off in the book. I really like this, but it's very brief. The author includes in the appendix different parts of the book, 1984. And yes, I'm going to look up whether it's actually written 1984 or written in numbers. But I'm just going to read how a part of the chapter 1, which is included here. It's a bright cold day in April, and the clocks are striking 13. Winston Smith, 39, goes home to his apartment in Victory Mansions, London, Airstrip 1, Oceania, to begin a secret diary. This is a dangerous endeavor in a one-party state where the thought police, spy helicopters, and two-way telescreens create a culture of constant surveillance. The ubiquitous posters of Oceania's mysterious leader read Big Brother's watching you. So there's so much wonderful information there. I mean, the apartment being Victory Mansions is hilarious. Because, I mean, it's not a mansion, and the people aren't living in luxurious conditions or whatever.
The other thing is the Russian you sort of use. Again, Popied Square. That's Victory Square, right? So, yeah, again and again and again. I should say a Soviet thing, like a Popied.
Okay. And
It's shocking.
I like the clock striking 13. That's lovely. And I like the Thought Police, spy helicopters, and two-way telescreens. If you think about it, right now we're living in a time where, we already know that the televisions and computer screens... Did I have something in my hair?
This day, it looked kind of nice. I wasn't sure. Not in your hair, on your cap. It was just a little
always have pieces of plant stuck to me.
A twig. So, yeah.
My grandmother, who taught me how to cook and sing and all sorts of things she wasn't meaning to teach me these things, but she was doing these things and I like to learn, so I'd learn off of her. And to garden. So she taught me all the things that I value the most, honestly. She would garden and she always looked perfect somehow. She always looked beautiful. And her hair was always perfect. Everything was perfect. And me, I garden and my hair is just crazy and I have branches and stuff in it. I don't know how it works, but anyway, I guess we do it differently. But yeah, I was gonna mention the computer screens and TVs that are watching us. We know that they are. And it's more than that. I took a GIS concentration, and so I took a lot of remote, well, I didn't take much remote sensing, I took more GIS. But there's oftentimes you'll see in class, they'll show you an example, the instructors will show you an example of, say there was one picture of a tennis court, and you could see the lines in the tennis court taken from yonder, and and they're saying, but it's not accurate. We can't use this to measure this to that much accuracy. It doesn't. They can't actually guarantee that kind of accuracy or whatever. And you're looking at this and saying, well, I can see the lines in the tennis court though. So if it was not that accurate, it would look blurry. So obviously,
I'm going to tell you a little secret.
It's accurate.
It's accurate, and the stuff the military allows out there is not nearly as accurate as what they've got. So.
Exactly. And we know, for example, that, so I see that on the screen, and I'm not allowed to, if I write that in on my answer, that's the level of accuracy, I will not pass the course, that's for sure. So I have to somehow train myself while I'm going to lie as I'm completing my university degree, right?
No, I understand that's on the subjective stuff as well as the objective stuff.
Yeah.
If you're writing an essay, you've got to write that down. It doesn't matter. People got this crazy idea that objective stuff is more likely to, you're supposed to vomit up the answers or regurgitate the answer as the term goes. Mm-hmm. But it's the same sort of thing. Subjective testing, what's worse about subjective testing is if the prof doesn't like you, you're going to get nailed. Whereas the objective testing, you got to regurgitate and hope. In the case of essay writing, you regurgitate and get your mark when it's objective testing. So
and
I know that's politically and academically incorrect, but that's just the way it goes. If you actually want to get it so
really,
people
the people involved really know. They know because what was it? One of your instructor was saying that the university is what was he saying? The term. Like the Masons and stuff.
Oh, he's very perceptive. It's like a guild system.
A guild system.
Yeah,
That's what I was
That's all
going
it
for.
is. So you've got to, at the lower levels, particular first year when you're doing Moodle or whatever, some sort of, like computerized testing and it's objective testing, people get advanced that deserve to be advanced. They're having to regurgitate answers, but it's fairly easy to figure out what you're supposed to say and all that sort of stuff. But then the essay tests start creeping in.
Yeah, but even in the first year, you have to regurgitate some lies.
Of course, but
and
you can
it's
figure
in
that
every
out.
discipline.
You can play the game. You know
You
what I'm saying?
can, yes.
Yeah,
But
the big
you
trouble,
have to.
Yeah, the big trouble is when you get up higher that they've got to like you too,
Yeah.
and it becomes more and more personalized, more and more personal, and it just gets worse and worse. And ultimately, the people who get promoted to the grad level, that's just master's level, that don't fit in, they've been weeded out. And it gets worse at the PhD level, and then it gets worse when you get hired as a professor, and it gets worse when you're getting deciding when they're deciding whether you're tenured, right?
Yeah, I
And
know.
then there's the publishing
One
thing, too.
question I couldn't regurgitate the lie. It was so offensive to just my very being. I couldn't possibly do it. And it was in a history first level course, and it was the context. It was about the industrialized Britain, back in the 1800s sometime, and women didn't used to love their children, and that's what you were supposed to write down. That mothers didn't, there weren't mothers. Women didn't love their children back then, and the fact of the matter is human infants are very helpless. If mothers didn't love their human infants, there would be no people, because they require almost constant care. So if they didn't love them, it's just such an obvious lie, and it's really offensive to me.
And the ones that do make it through without much love, they aren't that successful. So they don't necessarily breed that successfully and stuff like that. So that sort of stuff. Don't like looking at interpreting things in terms of natural selection that much. But natural selection doesn't work in terms of improving things, but it does weed stuff out. And if people, not just women, but men, don't take care of. I'm not talking necessarily about a nuclear family. It could be an extended family, the kind you can find in certain so-called non-Western societies and stuff like that. Kids have to be taken care of some way or another, or the society just is gone. So you're right.
Yeah.
It's not just mothers or whatever. Anyway, it's there's some sort of love going on, something that we might call love, but care and attention and stuff like that goes beyond just a mere. Kids can't offer you money, and stuff like that.
But also, I mean, I'm really glad that I took the GIS concentration, so that I could understand a lot of. I'm not interested in that sort of thing at all, but I wanted to learn more about geography. Because my dad, he would always travel using maps, so he had a lot of maps around.
He had a huge collection of
Yes.
maps. I think I ended up with some of them even before he died.
Yeah. So he
gave me
those.
some.
Yeah.
That's right.
So-
that was a very generous gift because
Yes,
I knew
because
maps
he knew that
mattered
you
to him.
liked.
Yeah,
geography too.
it's good when a person reads what another person likes, and then
Yeah.
you see he gave up some of the stuff that he really loved. So
Yeah.
that was an awesome gift, I gotta say.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's why I took that. But I learned so many things that matter, that will make me a better learner, right? Just in general. And one of the things that, I never could have imagined that the satellites that are watching us could watch if we're underground. I could never have guessed that they would be able to see us underground, but they can.
Yeah,
They
it was
can
funny.
see people underground
You know,
now.
I can remember people
So they could see you
worrying
in your
about,
house. It's just
Osama bin Laden and not being
Yeah.
able to flush him out. Okay, I go, yeah, they know where he is. You know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. That was back in 2001. You were taking these courses around 2010,
I don't know.
2010 around there. So
but
almost
yeah,
10
it's
years
just
later,
it's
so.
funny, you know.
And now we're almost 10 years after that,
Yeah.
and the
Well, who
and the
knows, right?
resolution
But
would be
it's like
amazing.
I'm sure. I was watching a TV show a while ago, and it was ridiculous. They were. There were a couple people inside of their living room, and they're like, "Oh, we need to talk to each other, but our, there could be bugs in the room or whatever." And so they grab their laptop and they start like typing out messages to each other, and it's like, come on, that's about the most ridiculous thing. Why would anyone expect that they could be
You're just sending out electronic signals. Read me.
yes,
Wow. Yeah.
but the fact of the matter is, I mean, even now, if somebody really wanted to know what like say James and I were in the living room and we thought, okay, well, we're being bugged or whatever, then write a note to each other. And it's like, probably they could even see a note. I have no idea what they could see right now if they wanted to. The
It's
fact of the
possible.
matter is that we're incribly boring, as you
Yeah.
can see, or as you don't, because you're not
because
watching.
You're not watching.
So,
Hi, all the
I
people
mean,
that aren't watching.
that
But we
really
should
is-
say hi to all the people that are.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching.
Yeah. So, I mean, the fact of the matter is, if you're a passive person and you lead a good existence where you're just trying to not use too many resources and trying to do good rather than harm, well, why is anybody going to care what you're doing? Why would they want to stop you? So
Well, there's a certain, actually, the majority of belief systems out there actually believe in hammering down on them because it's a belief system and they want to control their beliefs.
okay, but
in
the
our
free
society-
world, in
and-
our
Yeah,
society,
it's relatively free.
yes, it's
Like,
relatively free.
It's
We
harder
don't
and
have
harder
to worry
to
about
control
that.
the decisions that are made, but
Yeah.
at least they leave you alone. There's something like freedom of speech and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Because most societies that have ever been invented in the world and that actually that exist in the world nowadays, they would prefer that we would be speaking this freely.
No,
And of course, there are
because the
segments
fact
in
of the
our
matter
society
is,
that
a bunch
want to
of
crush
people,
us.
sure, he's talking about, right away, he talks about how many people went out and bought 1984.
After Trump.
And, honestly now, I am wondering if it was written out, or numbers.
It doesn't matter, like the important thing is, like to question it, but
I'm
not
gonna
say
have to
I'm
look into it."
right.
Yeah.
That's the problem. It's not being wrong; it's being wrong and maintain. It happens so often. I'll be talking with people, they're wrong. I know it, and I end up. It's like T.S. Eliot put it. How can I make a cowardly amends for what they've
Honestly,
said
I
to me?
can't
I'll say,
remember
"Well,
now,
maybe
but I
I'm
was
wrong."
so sure of it while I was reading this, and now
There you
I
go.
have to look into it. Because that's the way things are. Sometimes your memory is not so good. But, anyway. Easy enough to check out for now, because I can get it in paper format. I can look in boxes of books and try to find the same one that I read years ago in paper format. But
Oh, sorry.
no, but what I was going to say about so many people buying the copies of 1984, if we were living in a society where we were really controlled, people wouldn't have been able to do that.
No.
So,
And guess what? They still can. Trump's been in power for close to 3 years. And, you can still buy George Orwell, and you can still make fun of Trump, call him the big Cheeto, or
Yeah.
as I call him, Donald Dump.
Yeah. But, I mean, if you really, really care, if you really think, gee, things might be heading in a bad direction, which
they're heading
I
in a bad
actually
direction.
think that they are, then stop buying electronic formats of books and buy copies that you can then put into storage. Like, say, buy a piece of land. Well, you still can. That there's lots of land that people don't seem to think are good for farming right now. Well,
And they really aren't.
buy a chunk of that.
You know, they
And
should be in woods.
Whatever.
There's lots of things that shouldn't be used for farming land. They were cleared, and it's more natural for them to be in woods. So buy some woods, maintain the woods. You know,
Whatever.
You have,
Buy a piece of land, stick some sea cans full of books. You know, that's really the best thing you can do. If you care about the way the world is going, buy awesome, not this book, but buy awesome history books and things that actually matter. Language books, this and that. Put it in sea cans and store it, so that then maybe in 100 years, if the thought police haven't destroyed everything, then somebody can dig that up and open that up, and the information's still there. I mean, because really, this is the most important thing that we can preserve through history, are our libraries. And we can't trust the people who are put into power to preserve public libraries. They throw the books away. They switch to electronic formats, and electronic formats can be altered really easily. So yeah, it's left up to you. If you want to save it, and you're one of the greens, you're a thinker, you're a learner, or you're a blue, you're another passive thinker, learner.
Or like you,
Do something about
like
it.
you and I are kind of intermediate. We're both on the line.
Yeah, we're both on the line. You're more aggressive than me, but who isn't?
Well, there's lots of people.
Well, I'm on the passive line. I'm as passive as you get.
Well,
Yeah, I'm not, I don't know what it is. I guess because I'm up near the blue, I don't know. But
all I
I'm
can
not
say
like
is
my
that
sister.
I know people are more passive.
Well, I'm not submissive.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay.
I won't be
Yeah.
submissive.
So you're not down in the corner. That's
I don't know. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that the blues are not submissive.
The blues are the analytical ones
Yeah.
at the top. I would have made them green, but it's,
I don't know. Yeah, I would have actually. I would have switched the colors of blue and green also.
green tends to be defensive color.
Yeah.
But it stands up for itself. People who like greens,
Yeah.
whereas blue tends people who prefer
Cooperate
blue tend
and
to
stuff.
be cooperative
Yeah.
and pacific. So,
Yeah, I know.
You know, I wish I were more blue in some ways, but
I'm just using the color scheme that guy went
Yeah, I know,
with.
I know.
That's all. You know, it's just I don't really care one way or the other. It's
the red and the yellow, I think, are well chosen for the type of personality he's talking about.
I think so. But I think that's really a lot of people don't take the passive side seriously. They just think that they're there to be used.
Well,
right?
even passive.
If you're an
people
aggressive
don't.
person, you've trained yourself to think that the passive people are there to submit to you. Really, everything, whatever an aggressive person wants, you take from the passive people. It's really, you know, like you were talking about a friend of yours. Well, not really a friend, coworker that you had, where. Because I don't want to overstate it or whatever. I shouldn't say friend. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So you were talking about this guy before, how he had said that he liked to, or he picked his girlfriend young because then he could train her or something.
Yeah.
And this is a lot of dominants. The Reds think that they're passive people that they select to be a mate or whatever, that they're training them. It's a common misconception about dogs also, actually, that people think that they're training dogs. You're not training a dog. the dog's training you more, probably more, or as
What
much
you're
as
trying to do is just fight a. It's almost like a battle. What you're doing is usually it's a losing battle for almost everyone. The dog trainers are basically just have drawn a line in the sand. You're not training me any further than this.
Yeah.
To a large extent. So those are the successful dog trainers. Dogs are constantly training, and they're very good at it. They've got.
But the passive people, they want to keep their the lover that they have, that they like. I honestly, I really look up to James. It might even be worship, and I did this with my last boyfriend, and I know that I do that, and I can't help it. And a lot of passives are this way. We really admire the people we're with to the extreme, so we'll pretty much do anything for them, right? I mean, what would you do for your God, right? And so if you have a passive kind of spouse, well, they're not going to push it too far, and things are going to stay pretty okay, right? But somebody who's aggressive, well, they're just going to keep taking and taking all that you can give, and you're going to try to give all until you break. And anyway, but the thing is you don't have to. If you're passive, you can acknowledge it and stand up a minute and say, wait a minute, this person who I think is a god picked me. So what does that make me? Because honestly, they're trying to convince themselves that that you're nothing. You're a dog to be trained or whatever. And but really, you're the ultimate learner. A dog, they learn so much. Even when I had an old basset hound, and we'd still teach him all sorts of things, and he'd smile, he'd be like, I figured it out, and they're so happy about it.
The first time he figured out behind you, because it involved food,
Yeah, well,
and he's the only
does.
dog we've ever had. We had young pups, they never learned behind you, but he figured that out. He was well over 10 years old when he figured that out, and boy was he happy, because he was doubly happy. He got that food, saved time, triply happy. He didn't have to spend a lot of time looking for it, and he knew he'd done good. He knew I was pleased. So
and anyway, so yeah, passive people are ultimate learners, really. And if you just sit up and go, wait, who deserves my energy more? This guy who is not as good a learner as me and is just meaner. That's why he's in control, is because he's meaner.
Yeah.
Or she.
Oh, some of those dominants and what do they call? I call them entertainers or performers.
Yeah.
Those yellow ones, they don't learn at all. They
No.
learned a few tricks.
Yeah.
By the time they're age 25. I'm reminded of a study I ran across on family order and oldest siblings. This guy did this study, was looking at careers of scientists and all sorts of other people. He's saying scientists who are oldest siblings have made their major discoveries, almost all their discoveries, age 25. So they do learn, but they shut it off pretty quickly. So.
Yeah.
And then the rest of their miserable lives, they spend making other people's lives even more miserable, saying, my way is right. So, they're 50 years down the